It begins with the simple statement, give us this day our daily bread. The fourth petition is simply for bread. Now, bread, no doubt, it's a picture, it covers really all food, but it's a symbol, and I think Martin Luther in his writings is correct on this point at least, that bread was a symbol for everything necessary for the preservation of life. Give us our necessities. D.A. Carson wrote this, the prayer is for our needs, not for our greeds. And we realize that, Jesus' culture is different from ours. And in Jesus' culture, most people live what we would consider to be hand-to-mouth, paycheck to paycheck. They would work and they get paid every single day. And for most people, it was a simple day-to-day existence. Now, what's interesting is we don't live in that world anymore, but still, many of us just live paycheck to paycheck. We still have that same conception, even though now we have the ability to save money in different ways, and we have all sorts of vehicles for investments, for tax implications. But it's interesting that most people's anxiety is not about today, it's about tomorrow. We spend most of our time fretting about what tomorrow is going to hold. And Jesus, and we're going to get to it, is going to tell us very clearly that we should take no anxious thought for tomorrow. He doesn't say that we should take no thought for tomorrow, just no anxious thought. And he says the great statement we'll get in a bunch of weeks, sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Jesus is not advocating being, not being wise stewards of the future. He's not advocating that we don't plan for the future. But what he is saying is that in our advocating and planning and pursuing the future, we do not let the fears of tomorrow ruin the joys of today. And let's be honest, we all struggle with this. Every single one of us. You look at the question marks of tomorrow, and it drives us to make all sorts of decisions that when you look back at what was I thinking? As I thought about this, give us this day our daily bread, or give us the necessities for today. I automatically thought of a beautiful section of the Proverbs chapter 30, verses 8 and 9. The prayer of a man named Abner, which says, remove falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food allotted to me, lest I be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God. That's some wisdom, isn't it? He's saying, Lord, let me neither be poor nor rich. Because he realizes that on either side, if you are in extreme poverty or if you are extremely rich, there's issues on both sides. If you're extremely rich, it's real easy just to be full and deny God. The reality is we live in an area that is kind of the default mode, that people here have been so successful for so long. Who needs God, really? And that's the mentality, because you can buy yourself whatever you think you want. But the reality is that even in abundant riches, without God, what do we have, really? What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? That's what Jesus said. And that's a sobering statement from Jesus. It's like, wow. Because for most of us, we wake up every day and we pursue gaining the whole world. Now, at the same time, Agger says, but don't let me be poor, so that I'll steal in your name. God is abundantly faithful. And I think for almost all of us, we can look at our lives, and the history of our lives, and we can say, God has always been faithful to me to give me my necessities. And for most of us, if we're honest, we can be faithful and see that God is also really good at not giving us the greeds that we really wanted. I look back over my life and there's a lot of things that I'm happy God didn't give me that I asked for. Because they weren't really necessities. They would actually hinder my life rather than promote an abundant life. I think it was Francis of Assisi who said that he had heard thousands of men's confessions, but never once the confession of covetousness. It's such a hard thing to be able to live in a culture that is so blessed with so much, and to be able to appreciate those things, but not be able to trust in those things. I think that's why when the rich young ruler came and Jesus realized that the guy trusted in his money, Jesus said, sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and the guy couldn't do it. And they said, Jesus turned and said, listen, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. I don't even know, you ever try and put a thread through the eye of a needle? I'm one of those people I sit all day. I just can't get that thread through the eye. And then try to imagine getting your tack through the eye of a needle. That's not happening, right? But Jesus said, a camel goes through the eye of a needle. That is a picture of absurdity, impossibility. The disciples got it. They said, well, who can be saved then? That's what I would ask. Jesus said, with men it's impossible, but with God all things are possible. And I think as Americans in the 21st century, recession aside, God wants his people to find the sweet spot of living in a culture and being able to enjoy such blessings. And if you've traveled at all, you realize that we are unique in the world. The poorest person in this room lives way more sumptuously than 2/3 of the world over. And there is a way to live in this world and be able to enjoy the blessings that we have, but not let it be something that drives us to covetousness and drives us to greed and drives us to excessive anxiety over tomorrow. And we need to ask God to give us wisdom in this, because we're all in this together. I fret about my bills as much as you guys do. I'm not standing up here going, man, I never have an anxious thought about tomorrow. I'm reading this, I'm saying, Lord, help me. Help me to be content and trust you for the necessities of life. And help me to make good decisions about the resources that he has entrusted to me.